Well, leaders have reacted with shock after Russia invaded Ukraine. President Vladimir Putin announced that the special military operation is aimed at de-escalation. Western leaders have vowed to punish Russia with new set of sanctions. SABC News international reporter Khayelihle Khumalo joins us now for more. Good afternoon, Khayelihle. So far, how has the world reacted to Russia's invasion of Ukraine?
Well, certainly. So there has been a very common thread of condemnation in light of the invasion of Ukraine. For example, you do have the US leader Joe Biden saying this is a very unprecedented aggression, but also saying US remains really committed to the room for diplomacy, to be given a chance. But of course, at this point in time, really it's a very precarious position. But also you do have the European Commission, for example, going as far as saying that now a raft of sanctions now will be imposed against Russia. So they'll be targeting quite a number of banks and many other generals and many other members of the Duma, which is the Russian parliament. But apart from that, you do have countries like Iran as well saying democracy should be given a chance. So by virtue of giving democratic means an opportunity, so a dialogue should be held so that they try and stop the current invasion.
Do we know the extent of the damage at this point?
Well, at this point in time, really, the authorities are still gauging the damage. But so far, we do know that cities like Odessa, that the coastal part of Ukraine, have been affected. But also we've received reports that from the Belarus border as well, that's where the troops have been coming in, shelling and causing all kinds of chaos in Ukraine. And we do know that this is a very important country in Eastern Europe, but also just other countries right next to it, the likes of Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania as well. Others are considering as well having their own states of emergency, because this conflict really in the region has caused a bit of panic within the Baltic states, the Balkan states as well. So really the entire Europe as well and the world is watching keenly as Ukraine is facing this crisis.
Plenty of meetings are expected to plan the next course of action. What can we expect there?
So the expectations are very high. For example, you do have the NATO ambassadors. They'll be meeting later on today to look at the next course of action. But what has been a very clear indication so far is that from the US's side, there won't be boots on the ground. But what they've been doing is ramping up the arsenal, the artillery being moved to the countries like Poland, and really just watching from the distance, so to speak. But at this point in time, it doesn't look like the whole issue around the sanctions really has yielded any intended outcome. But something that is really interesting around this particular case as well is the NATO leaders as well will meet. You have British Prime Minister Boris Johnson saying this is a catastrophe. This is something that hasn't been seen in Europe since the end of World War II.
What about South Africa? Are we concerned at all?
For South Africa, it's a very tricky situation. We do know that we belong to BRICS. So South Africa really is sitting on the fence, as much as they are calling for de-escalation, as much as they say dialogue should be held between the parties. But also there's a very clear principle. For example, the BRICS members, they always talk about the principle of non-interference in domestic affairs of other countries. But now there's a mounting pressure for BRICS to say something. We saw earlier during the course of this month where President Putin went to Russia, in fact went to China, and there he was really seeking international support. But also China as well has not been very clear as to what is the position of Beijing as this conflict unfolds.
Khayelihle, let's leave it there, and we'll, of course, continue to catch up with you as the events unfold. That is Khayelihle Khumalo, who is SABC News international reporter.